Congressman, I want to ask you, first of all, thank you for coming on. There's rumblings of discussions to reopen the government. Maybe small gangs of senators are reportedly working to find a way out. But, of course, Senate Majority Leader John Thune said he won't discuss any Affordable Care Act changes until the government is open. What have you heard, and is there a possibility of any breakthrough happening soon?
You know, I am not convinced if there is a possibility of a breakthrough as relates to it coming from the top down. I think that this is going to have to be a bottom-up effort. You know, there's been a lot of discussions about how much travel has been interfered with and how many planes have had to be canceled. I think that those are the types of things, those types of disruptions, the disruptions as it relates to SNAP benefits and WIC benefits. I think that those are the rumblings of the people that will finally solve this. Unfortunately, we have people that are not prioritizing the very people that put them into power, starting with the President of the United States, who has failed to sit down with the four corners, the leaders within the House as well as the Senate, to decide that they were going to come to a resolution to make sure that we can move forward in a way that benefits not just red states, not just blue states, but benefits the United States.
I mean, there just doesn't seem to be that much of a sense of urgency from the White House or Republicans. And does that tell you that they think they can end this shutdown without capitulating, without giving in to Democrats' demands?
You know, I don't know what it says. I mean, it is very hard to say that you can predict anything when it comes to this White House, especially when it comes to this particular president. I will tell you that, you know, it seems like he's not on the same page with the Republicans. We know that here recently he basically said, hey, just go ahead and explore the nuclear option. You know, they've been trying to blame this on the Democrats the entire time, when those of us who understand how things work, they have exploited the nuclear option more than once. And I'm not suggesting that they should. I'm actually suggesting that there's two ways out. Number one, you can either explore the nuclear option, which means that we reduce the threshold from 60 down to an even 50, or you could do what like most real politicians would do. They would actually negotiate. And if you are willing to talk about what it is that we can do as it relates to the Affordable Care Act on the back end, then why can't you talk about it on the front end? In addition to that, I do want to point out, because the House has failed to go in under the failed leadership of Johnson right now, here's the issue. We could be going through and getting through the actual appropriations bills, because the continuing resolution is only supposed to be a stopgap until we actually do our work. Well, considering the fact that we've been sitting this out, we could have been working. We could have been going through the 12 appropriations bills and getting those over to the Senate, and then we would at least potentially not even need the stopgap, or we'd be able to put different governmental departments back online because we've completed the actual appropriations. Yet Mike Johnson doesn't want to bring us back.
I also want to ask you about SNAP. Yesterday, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to keep paying those benefits during the shutdown, but it's unclear if or even when the 42 million Americans who rely on food stamps are going to get them, and 3.5 million people in your state of Texas. So what is your response to Republicans who are saying maybe we should take another look at this program because too many Americans are on SNAP? And what are you hearing from your constituents?
Well, I will tell you this. I will agree with them on one thing. I will agree that there are too many American people that are on SNAP benefits. But that means that you got to not look necessarily at SNAP. You got to look at the reasons that they're on SNAP. We know that over 1/4 of these people that are in receipt of SNAP benefits are actually the working poor in this country, right? We have not increased the minimum wage, and I don't know when, and the minimum wage still sits at $7 while everything else is going up, whether we're talking about the cost of food or whether we're talking about the cost of rent or whether we're talking about the cost to actually try to engage in home ownership, if we're talking about the interest rates. And we know that under the failed leadership of this administration, this country has seen a loss of 1 million jobs, and that's just in the first few months. He's not even had a full year. So no, we need to work on economic policies that will put people into a position in which they are not the working poor, where they are still needing the $6 a day to eat. So yes, we need to talk about it, but I don't think that SNAP is the problem. I think that that is the resolution or at least that is a symptom of the problem. We have a bigger problem in which we have billionaires that are continuing to rise up every single day and are getting richer and richer, to the extent that there was talk about Elon becoming a trillionaire, the first one in this country or in the world. Yet we still have people that have to go to the food bank and go to work, that have to sit there and go to make sure that they've got money on their SNAP and EBT cards. Like, that's a problem, and I do think that we need to address it.
And you mentioned it's about 30% have income, but that number goes up to 55% of SNAP users if you include families with children. I also want to ask you about another huge cost right now, and that's health insurance. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimates about 17% of your state's population did not have coverage in 2024, and more than 1 million might become uninsured if these subsidies expired. What impact do you think that will have on families in your state, and are you hearing concern across the aisle on this issue?
I am absolutely hearing concerns kind of in general, and many of those on the other side of the aisle do not want to admit it publicly. You have pretty much only really seen Marjorie Taylor Greene be honest about this and talk about the issue as relates to the number of her constituents that are going to potentially go uninsured. And when we talk about this, I want people to understand, because I feel like some people are just callous about this and they're like, this doesn't impact me. And overall, all of this is impacting you. Everyone's insurance premiums are going up because of the big ugly bill, number one. But number two, just because somebody doesn't have health insurance coverage doesn't mean that people somehow now are not going to be sick. I need people to understand that there are oaths that many doctors have decided that they are going to honor, unlike the oaths that many of my colleagues have taken, in which they've decided to disregard. And so when somebody gets sick, that means that they're going to be at the emergency room regardless as to whether or not they have coverage. And overall, we all end up paying for it, and it is so much more expensive than making sure that that person has coverage and they're able to go in on a consistent basis and see a doctor and hopefully prevent any escalation of any problems that they may have health-wise. So this is a catastrophic issue for all of us, and we all need to be in.
Congresswoman, very quickly before I let you go, are you running for Senate? What's going to help you make that decision?
I have no idea just yet. What's going to help me is data. You know, basically, we haven't elected a Democrat statewide in the state of Texas in over 30 years. So to me, it's not about the current electorate. It's about whether or not I can expand the electorate. I know that the numbers exist in the state of Texas, but it's just about whether or not I am the candidate that can excite people that have never paid attention to politics to get involved, something that we saw from a junior senator out of Illinois when he became the president of the United States, and something that, frankly, we saw out of Donald Trump. He was able to excite people that had never really been engaged in politics. So that will be probably what determines whether or not I get in.
All right, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.